Hey folks, Eddie from Totally Wired Guitars here, and you probably have noticed I've been trying my best to, at least not in an extended fashion, make commentary on all of the Fender lawsuit hoopla that's been going on right now. If you've been living under a rock, please just Google Fender lawsuit and it'll catch you up very, very quickly as to what's going on and why so many folks in the guitar community are angry with them, are boycotting them, and all that. And so far, I've been able to continue what I do, talking about offset guitars, covering brands like Foles, for example, the past 2 weeks that I usually haven't given platform to on my channel because this is primarily a Fender / Squier offset guitar, enthusiast channel. So, I did not think I would be making this video today, but one of the biggest music, guitar, gear influencers on YouTube, the one and only Rick Beato, a man who I have the utmost respect for and I'm a big fan of personally, finally weighed in himself and succeeded in effectively roasting the shit out of Fender in his video. And while there are a number of points that I agree with him on, there was also a number of points that I thought were way overblown and mega exaggerated. And I wanted to kind of chime in today as a guitar tech who is very busy every month here in New York City, primarily working on, 99.9% of the guitars that I take in every month are Fenders or Squiers. And I also get them in for review, brand new. I thought that I was at least in a unique position to share with you all the points that Rick made that I agree with and the points that I most definitely don't agree with. And from that vantage point, as one of the ground troops that quite literally has to service these guitars all the time, I just wanted to offer a differing perspective, inform you as to why, a lot of people have the negative experiences that they have, not only with Fender, but also guitars in general, and why I think some of the points that Rick Beato made were frankly full of shit. So I actually printed out Rick Beato's transcript, which I am going to read from rather than, paste in clips from his actual video, because I am not quite sure how well fair use holds up. And I'm not trying to test fate right now. So some of the points that he made, he talked about being a big Fender fan overall, but that Fenders these days essentially play like shoes. And he made a very, very general but also decisive statement about Fenders as a whole. And I'm thinking that he's talking probably about the past at least 10 years, maybe even 20 years. And to illustrate his point, Rick shows an American Standard Strat that he had bought used. I'm not sure where from, but he clearly specifies that it was $900. And I'm going to go ahead and quote him. He says, "This is a Strat I bought in a music store here used. This started out as an American Standard Strat. The body is still an American Standard Strat, but the guitar that I bought that I paid $900 for had a really terrible neck on it. So what did I do? I took the neck off and I had a neck made that's not a Fender neck. This is not a Fender neck on it. As a matter of fact, many new Fender guitars are not good." Wow. Dude, not good for Fender for sure. To have one of the biggest music influencers on YouTube basically tear you a new one in that kind of fashion. He continues, "But this guitar does not have a Fender neck on it. It's a Fender body. What did I do with the neck? I threw it in the garbage. Why? Because I couldn't sell it, because it wasn't worth anything. It played terribly. And this is one of the problems with Fender guitars. This is why people have been making Fender style guitars for decades, because the quality has been hit or miss." Now, I can't say I completely disagree with Rick on this point. We've seen our fair share of both used and brand new Fenders and Squiers on this channel. And my favorite saying when it comes to working on Fenders is, there's always something. There is always something. It's never really quite a straightforward, pull the thing out of the box. And it's amazing right from the get-go. But to that note, and I'm not just trying to be an a-hole here and play devil's advocate, but that's really almost no guitar, right? I recently covered the Foles FJM7 Ultra, which I have praised, but even that had some issues out of the box. And this is a company that prides themselves in being able to provide a high quality instrument that rivals Fender at a much lower price point. And this is the thing that I just need to say, because he makes some points later on. Yes, every single Fender or Squier that you take out of the box, if you have any kind of refined taste or specifications for how you like a guitar to play, is most likely going to need at minimum a minor setup. And a minor setup can take you, what, 20 minutes? Right? If you need to adjust maybe some of the saddles, get the radius down, maybe stretch out the strings, right? It can all be done under an hour, so long as you have the appropriate tools, you know, an Allen key, for example, the kind that usually come with a brand new Fender or Squier. And it can be done so long as you know what you are doing, right? Now, if you have to bring it to your guitar tech to get a setup, that is likely going to cost you somewhere between $100, $150, depending on where you live, right? And that's something that I think informs the reason why a lot of folks do feel disenfranchised. Now, I have only been playing since the late 90s, right? I think I got my first guitar in 1997, and I bought my first Fender with my own money that I, you know, had saved up from working at the fucking Gap. And I bought myself an American Standard Telecaster. And that was probably what? That was like 1999, the year 2000 or so. And I never so much in the, you know, over a decade that I owned that guitar before it got stolen, I never so much as did a setup or brought it to anyone to set up. I barely even changed the goddamn strings, because prior to falling down the offset guitar rabbit hole, which forced me to pretty much learn how to do all of my own work on my guitars, because I didn't have the friggin' money to pay, you know, a tech every time something came up. I quite literally had no idea. I didn't know. I didn't have really any preferences. I didn't know whether my guitar played like crap or what. All I knew was that I could play it, and it was fine. And things, it stayed in tune. I mean, it was a Telecaster, so of course it was fine. You know, those are workhorse guitars. But that said, right, as you start to play guitar more, and as your definitions for what your needs are refined, then of course it's going to be very easy for players to start to pick apart, not just Fender again, any guitar as they come from the factory. And he makes a pretty definitive statement that it's one of the problems with Fender guitars, but I just wanted to counter that and say, really, all guitars, right? You cannot go on any guitar forum where people are talking about more than just, you know, Fender guitars. If you see all of the gripes, for example, that people have with Gibson guitars, especially because of how goddamn expensive those are, right? You are going to see an endless list of qualms and complaints. Again, it's just par for the course. Guitars are made of wood. The truss rods can loosen or tighten depending on the environments they're in. And based on that alone, right, a guitar could be playing very clean. It could feel like it's got low action. It could feel like it has high action. It could have an excessive amount of fret buzz, all of that. So there are so many factors that lead to why a guitar plays a certain way, and not all of that can be controlled out of the box. So I just wanted to clarify that, because Rick doesn't really go and explain the reasons why he thought the neck was such garbage. He just literally tells you that he pulled the neck off of a $900 guitar and just threw it in the trash because it wasn't worth anything. And as a guitar tech, if I threw away every single neck that came through my shop that was, you know, stock on a guitar that felt like trash, my goodness, it would probably be at least half of them. But The reality is you don't have the same kind of you money that Rick Beato has, you know, where you can just throw away a $500 neck with no remorse whatsoever. Then you bring it to a guitar tech, you get a setup. Maybe you need a fret leveling. Maybe you need some fret dressing because the fret ends are sharp, something very common that I do to a lot of the guitars that come in to me. But have I ever actually thrown a guitar neck in the garbage? No. If a tech knows how to address it, they can usually do it. Now, of course, there are cases where you maybe have a broken truss rod or you have a warped neck, and the cost of service to fix, you know, far outweighs the cost of just buying a brand new neck. And so maybe that is what happened with Rick. But if it just felt like crap and he didn't actually verify what it was that was making it feel like crap, I can almost guarantee that, you know, 80 to 90% chance that that most likely could have just been worked on by a good tech and still been less than the cost of him having a custom neck made. Now, the second part of his video goes on to muse about the reasons why Fender had managed to lose John Mayer as one of their signature artists. And he continues to lace into Fender, pondering whether maybe the Fenders just weren't up to snuff for John Mayer to continue to kind of endorse with his profile and his name. He then starts to draw the comparisons to PRS, which again, if you are up to date on everything going on with the Fender lawsuit stuff, the big news this past week is that no, Fender isn't just going after the small fish in the sea, apparently, when it comes to custom guitar builders that do Stratocaster copies. Nope, they have actually gone after PRS. I'll go ahead and quote what he said. He said, "If you were to go to any music store, Guitar Center, and pull a Fender Strat off the shelf and go play it at a gig, well, I wouldn't recommend it because the chances of it playing well are extremely low." Now, he's not completely unfounded in that thought. I think he purposely used Guitar Center in this example to kind of, you know, twist Fender's nuts a bit more here. And it's not every shop. Some of the shops have great managers and great employees that actually care about the instruments, but the average Guitar Center experience where you walk in and pull a guitar off the rack and play it, again, not limited to just Fenders, is that you are not going to have that great of an experience overall, right? That said, there are many reputable shops here in New York City, for example, where they have prized instruments, vintage instruments, right? $3,000 guitars that are hanging up that you would think, especially in this economy, at minimum, maybe every day, you would tune every guitar up so that it is playable. And maybe once every 2 weeks or something, you check to see if it needs just a very basic setup. Maybe it needs a truss rod adjusted or something, because that is how people base whether or not they are going to buy a guitar, you know, on the spot. If it plays well and it speaks to them, they're going to buy it. But that said, again, reputable shops here in New York that I have walked into start playing some guitars, more than one guitar, right? Number of prized Fender guitars, Gibson guitars, Gretsch guitars, back to back. And I am shocked because, no, this isn't Guitar Center. This is a boutique shop. Why do all these guitars play like shit? Who's going to buy any of these, right? And then Rick starts to kind of blow some sunshine up PRS's ass. No doubt, I've seen Paul Reed Smith on Rick's channel. They seem to be, you know, acquaintances, if not buddies. And he says, and I quote here, "If John Mayer were to go and pull a PRS Silver Sky off any wall in any store in the United States, in Europe, wherever they're sold, he could go play it on a gig that night and know that it was going to play in tune and play perfectly because the quality control at PRS, in particular, I know, That's because I've been to the factory. I went there in 2018, the first time I met Paul, and I saw Paul open up boxes that were on pallets, ready to get shipped out to check the quality of them. Now that's nice. That is nice that, you know, Paul did that for Rick at the factory, right? I'm sure there are quality control managers at pretty much every guitar factory. That's why you have those little hang tags with the little inspection slips. And the thing, again, that is not mentioned at all here is that as good as that guitar is, as it leaves the factory, there are so many factors that can contribute to it playing like shit by the time someone actually buys it. This guitar that I have here is a good point in case here. This is one of the brand new Fender Vintera 3 Jazzmasters. I did an unboxing and first impressions review of this and every other Vintera 3 offset model. And then over the next 4 weeks after that episode was released, I then would do deep dive episodes to review these guitars individually, the Jazzmaster, the Jaguar, the Mustang, and the Bass 6. And overall, I was pretty impressed with them. They didn't need that much out of the box to get set up. I think the one that needed the most was the Bass 6 because the mute had been set up incorrectly from the factory. And so that required having to pull the vibrato off and reset up the mute, which is more effort than a lot of folks out there would want to do on a brand new guitar. So I totally understand the gripe. That said, it has now been a month and a half since this guitar was shipped to me by our friends over at Zounds on loan for review. And it is now starting to exhibit some qualities to its overall feel and setup that I did not have out of the box, right? So the very first thing that would not be great for folks who are buying a brand new guitar is the fact that I do already feel the frets here starting to sprout. And the one and only, the legendary Ron Thorne actually commented on one of my videos that I posted on Instagram not too long ago. And he clarified that, you know, Ensenada, it's a great place. It's 2 miles from the beach. It's 70% humidity all year long. So while it's a beautiful and lovely place, not such a great place to make guitars, he says. And this was after me musing in the video why it is that the Vintera series in general seems to be so much more prone to fret sprout or sharp fret ends than other guitars that I have played. And so him clarifying that made perfect sense to me, right? If you are building guitars in a place that has 70% humidity pretty much all year long, as soon as you ship that guitar out, that wood is already beginning to shrink as it travels through the various climates and weather and the varying degrees of humidity that it's in. And even though in that video I explained that it hasn't been particularly dry in New York over the past 2 months, there's been a lot of rain, there's been a lot of humidity, there have been days where it's been hot as hell and humid here. And that still wasn't enough to keep the sharp fret ends at bay. The varying environment is definitely affecting the Mexican-made guitars that ended up in my shop. And that's not just limited to just the made in Mexico ones. You've seen me on this channel talk the world about Fender Japan, both old and new production Fender Japan guitars. And I had bit the bullet on a beautiful Sherwood Green FSR Jaguar, traditional 60s Jaguar that I kind of caved to FOMO. It was a guitar that had been sold out for a long while already, and one just so happened to pop up at an amazing price, and I bought it even though I needed a new guitar like I needed a friggin' hole in the head. And so when it finally arrived, the guilt kind of overcame me, and I did not open that box thinking to myself, oh, I'll get around to it, I'll get around to it. I didn't open the box for probably 3 or 4 months after getting it, right? And so it was in the box there with its little silicone packets and all of that to try to keep the humidity and everything in check. But when I pulled that guitar out, and I had already owned a guitar, the same exact guitar, except in Sonic Blue, when I pulled that guitar out, it felt like absolute shit. The fret ends were so sharp, they were protruding what felt like at least a full millimeter from the edges. And this is on a Jaguar that had binding on the neck too. Now, was it because the folks at Fender Japan are doing a quality job? Hell no. Hell no. In fact, I've said it so many times here. The people who build the guitars at Fender Japan, my buddy Che at Lounging Guitars also kind of confirmed this, that everybody who has their hands in the production of the guitars that come out of Fender Japan is actually a trained luthier. So unlike the production lines in the United States and also in Mexico, where a person quite literally knows how to do their one job, right? And they are not going to know whether the person who did their thing before them effed it up, right? And so a guitar goes through the entire production line with all of these things that have been missed. Whereas at Fender Japan, if somebody messes something up or overlooks something, forgets to do something, the next, guy or gal that has their hands on it will be able to rectify those misses, right? So that is a prime example of why it doesn't just come down to the company. Again, these guitars are organic in a way, right? These guitars are organic. The wood breathes, it expands, it contracts, and all of those things contribute to one's overall sense of how quality a guitar is. And to the point that he makes about being able to go into any guitar store and pick up a PRS Silver Sky and be able to gig with it. Come on, Rick. Come on, Rick. I love you, man. I really do. But you and I both know, regardless of what you saw at the PRS factory, you could walk into a Guitar Center right now and pick up a PRS Silver Sky, and it's going to play like shit. All it takes is a quick Google search. PRS Silver Sky, QC issues, right? PRS Silver Sky, stock setup. And you are going to, again, see a litany of complaints about that model and that brand as well. So that's basically why I made this video. It's very easy to pile on Fender right now, but I had to kind of counter those points because you cannot say these definitive things about instruments that are quite literally going to change over time, right? And that does not come down to what the company is doing. Sure, I agree with Rick that the quality of Fender overall, and in particular post-pandemic, really took a hit, really took a drop. But it's not just them. Take a look again at what folks said about the quality control over at Gibson, not even just after the pandemic, but over the past 10, 15, 20 years. So again, it's easy to kind of get on the bandwagon and just roast Fender in a way that they deserve. But Rick Beato's video, it's entertainment. It's his own personal experience, doesn't really cover all the ground. And I just kind of wanted to offer that alternate perspective that colors in a bit more of the reasoning why stuff like this happens to not only your Fenders, but to your Gibsons, to your Gretsches, to your PRSs. And now you know. And now you also know that you don't need to throw away the neck that feels like crap on your guitar. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you found it enjoyable, enlightening. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell to be notified of new videos as soon as they drop. And don't forget to follow Totally Wired Guitars for more offset guitars buying tips.